We've got half send out, and it's time to put those lowering springs on. Affordable and effective way to improve handling, but the question is, how low is each one going to go? We've pulled 4 of the most popular lowering springs off our shelves because each website is going to claim a certain amount of drop, but the only way to find out exactly how low the car goes on these springs is to put them on and find out. So that's what we're going to do, one at a time, measuring the gap each time so that you guys don't have to. So each the Swift and the Whitelines claim 1 inch of drop, but if you look at them, they're totally different spring designs. You have a progressive spring pattern here and a way more uniform spring coil over here. They both perform a little different, and they've been formulated to work well with their different patterns. And over here, the Eibachs have a 0.7 front and a 1 inch rear drop, whereas the H&Rs are claiming a 1.5 to 1.8 average drop, which is a much more honest idea of what's going to happen because they're kind of addressing the fact that it's going to be different on every application. There are a lot of factors. So that's why we're putting them on the car to find out exactly where it ends up. For science, we're going to measure the stock ride height because it has the stock springs and struts on there. And we're going to go from the bead of the rim to the top of the wheel arch, and it's looking like about 4 1/4 inches. So let's see what happens with those new springs. 4 3/8. So we're swapping out the OEM spring with the aftermarket spring, and just from looking at it, this one's got the progressive spring rate on it. You can't really tell about the height difference because this one's under a lot of pressure, which means that you need a tool to compress the spring before you can remove the top hat and take the spring off. Make sure you're very careful when doing that because it's loaded like a grenade and you don't want to lose any limbs. Pull the top hat, put the new spring on, recompress, back into the car. And the front is significantly more difficult than the rear, so we started with the hard end first, and it should be easy from here. So we're starting off with the Swift Sport Spec R springs, and from the research that we did, we found that the OEM spring rates are about 3.2K, whereas the Swifts are measuring at 4K in the front and 4.5 in the rear. But what's nice about that is they have a really nice progressive spring rate design so that this part's soft enough you can squeeze it by hand, which is going to absorb a lot of the bumps and vibrations when you're just cruising, and the other half of the spring is really stiff to help keep your car flat and level when you're in the turns. So all we have to do is get the rest of these on the front, back onto the car, pop the rear springs into the back, which is much easier to do than the front, get her back on the ground, take her out for a test ride, find out exactly how far she drops. They claim about a 1 inch drop, but like we said before, there's a lot of variables, so you gotta put them on to find out. The Swift kit is installed. We've already gone up and down the block a few times to let everything settle. So it's time to take our measurement, and it looks like we're right at about 3 3/4, which is exactly 1 inch of drop. The back was at 4 5/8, which is 3 5/8. So the website seems to be pretty accurate for this set, and it looks good. The Swift springs are in, they look amazing. It's time to take it out for a proper test drive and see how they feel. Okay, shakedown test is complete. It feels really good, still very predictable. When you engage a turn, it comes in nicely. It doesn't grab too quickly. They're not super harsh, which is good. That's the progressive amount of springs that you can squeeze by hand. So over a lot of these cracked roads, you can feel the cracks in the road, but they don't sting like some coils definitely do. That being said, when you are cranking around, pulling a little bit more G-force, there's definitely a lot of grip. And this car has some other handling modifications too, so I would say we are pushing the springs pretty hard. The car wants to stay flat, and when the springs are rebounding, you definitely feel the progressive area of the spring kind of hold on, and the handling overall gets a little lighter. Are they streetable? Yes. If you need something that is smooth and comfortable on your way to work every day, but capable of having a lot of fun, being very responsive, this is an easy choice. And I just noticed that the forecast was for some rub today, but I think we're in the clear. Haven't heard anything from the tires on the wheel wells, and I've got nothing bad to say about these. We're back in the shop taking the Swifts off. I misspoke out front when I was measuring. The drop is actually a little less than an inch. I just got excited. But they might settle a little bit more as they break in. So we're switching over to the Whitelines now. The Whitelines are listed as a softer spring, although it's a much more linear design, so they're definitely gonna feel a lot different. The front is a 2.8K and the rear is 3.6, and the rear has more of a progressive design, so there's a little trade-off there. We're gonna have to get them on the car and figure out how they feel out on the streets. Well, that looks tight. That is nice. 3 1/8. That's over an inch of drop just by a little bit. The back doesn't look quite as tucked in. And we're right about 3 3/4. So a little bit less than an inch of drop on the rear, a little bit more than an inch of drop on the front. And just from taking it around the block a few times, it already feels a little bit more crisp on those smaller cracks and bumps, but we're gonna take it out for a proper test drive, and we'll get back to you in a second. We're out on the Whitelines, and they feel really good. Crisp, great predictable feedback, not spongy at any point, and I would say confidence inspiring. You know what they're gonna do when you throw it into a corner and they push you out nice and flat. It feels good. They're dailyable, streetable for sure, but they're gonna be a little more crisp than what some people want. So if you're looking for immediate feedback when you're switching lanes, then this is gonna be a really good choice. Overall, I'm not worried so much about rubbing or scraping. We did get a little bit of rub on some of the bigger bumps and dips around town, but if you keep your eyes up and pay attention to where those are, it won't be a problem. I would say a good choice overall. Okay, on to the next, H&R Sport Springs. We've already got these ones mounted up, and you can tell that there's a lot of progressive spring pattern here. Unfortunately, we don't have a spring rate number for you. The Germans are keeping that a closely guarded secret, but of course, it's gonna be a pretty good ride. If what we've learned so far carries over, the amount of progressive spring here might mean that we're gonna get a comfortable, smooth feeling suspension that is gonna calm a lot of that road chatter that we might be getting on some of the more aggressive springs, but there's only one way to find out. As for the drop, they're listed at 1.5 to 1.8 inches, but there's a lot of different people claiming different amounts of drops on the internet. So we're gonna put them onto the car and find out exactly where it settles out to, and we'll be back with that test drive in a moment. All right, third set of springs. And we did a little shakedown. I ran through some of the ditches out here to try and get it to settle. It looks a lot less low. And we are at 3 7/8 in the front. Reasonable drop. It's definitely lower than stock. And from what I've already gathered, it's really comfortable. Doesn't feel quite as racy as some of the other ones, but it still gives you a little more support than the OEM. The rear is 3.5. So this is the first one that has a little bit more tuck on the back side than on the front, which is interesting. And again, we haven't gone full shakedown yet, so let's take her out on the road and double check. All right, the H&R Sport Springs. Right off the bat, like I said, they are comfortable. This is exactly what I would want if I'm commuting to and from work every day. And what a nice ride to end the day on, because this has been a long one. So the extra progressive spring rate is doing its job, taking away any of that harsh vibration, even on these super bumpy roads out here. But when you throw it into the corners, it supports you, it gives you good feedback, and it's still super playful, so almost no downside. So if you're looking for drop and comfort with the ability to weave a little bit when you need to, this is a perfect choice. Last but not least, we have the Eibach spring kit. This one has a progressive spring design in the rear and a linear design for the front. These ones are going to be working a 2.2K in the front and 2.5K in the rear, claiming 0.7 drop in the front and a full inch of drop in the rear. And of course, we'll have to get it out on the road to find out how accurate that is. This is also the only kit that comes with extra dust sleeve and bump stops to replace whatever you have left on your car. And overall, I'm impressed with the build quality. You get a nice nylon sleeve here to help with any binding that might be happening, so you're not losing paint after a couple 100,000 miles. But most of all, I'm excited to put these on and not have to take them off immediately afterwards. So let's get them into the car and take them for a ride. All right, we got the Eibachs on, and from first glance, they look like a pretty even wheel gap. Let's take a look here. Just about 3 3/4 on the front, which is less than an inch of drop as estimated by the brand, and the rear is about 3 3/4 as well. So we have an even wheel gap front to back, which is awesome. We haven't done the full test ride yet, so let's jump in, spin around the block, and see how she feels. All right, we've got the Eibach springs in, and they feel great right off the bat.
They don't have any of that harsh feedback that you might get from some of the more aggressive springs, so super commutable. Just like the Whitelines, they have a linear design in front with a progressive spring in the rear, which is going to mitigate a lot of that kind of racy bounce that you get sometimes, while still giving you plenty of feedback and response as you're turning into things a little more aggressively. Super predictable in that matter, keeping the car flat, easy to use. In terms of the ride height, this is going to be my top pick because I don't want my stance too low. I don't want to be thinking about scraping, worrying about it, especially since I'm going to daily all of my cars for the most part. I don't have a race car yet. But overall, this was a great pick. Can't go wrong with these Eibachs, and we're going to leave them on the car for now.
All right, that's it. 4 sets of springs on the Focus. We hope we got you enough information to help you decide which kit is best for your ride. And as always, if you're unsure of anything at all, give us a call because we have each one of these in stock at our shop, and we're here to help make sure you get exactly what you need. If you were paying attention, you may have noticed the sweet new edge banner that appeared on our Focus halfway through that video. And we actually have an extra one of these that we want to give away to one of our viewers. All you have to do to win your very own edge banner is to like the video, make sure you're subscribed, and then throw a comment down below as to which stance was your favorite out of the 4 sets of springs that we installed. Once we pick a winner at random, we're going to get this thing sent out straight away because we got a lot more videos to make, so we'll see you on the next one.